None of us like to fail. When we set out to do something, we want to succeed. We want the medal, the promotion, the certificate to frame the affirmation that our efforts were worth it. But if you were one of Jesus' followers in this precise moment, some 2,000 years ago, gazing upon this torture device known as the cross, standing at a distance and disguising yourself lest someone recognize you as one of his followers, watching as Jesus took his last agonizing breaths, surrounded by the taunts of the crowd who came out just to witness the macabre spectacle. You would have seen this moment not as a conquest, but a catastrophe. The mangled body of the one immeasurably great man, as Albert Schweitzer once famously put it, crushed under the wheel of history. There is a temptation on this day to make the cross into a sign of success, to fast forward past all the scary and ugly and grim and sad and awful parts and jump straight to the happily ever after. To avoid this very service with its tensions and paradoxes, to buffer ourselves against the pains and disappointments and losses of our lives, to numb or distract ourselves instead of feeling or facing them, to avert our eyes and just hop and skip right on over to the Easter egg hunt. Friends, really, what are we doing here? The cross was and is a horrific thing. It was an instrument of agony by which the powers of this world kept the weak in line, the conquered in check, and the vanquished in their place. It was the ultimate threat, the humiliating warning against any upstart hubris. You see this, says Rome. We have the power. We have the control. We have our hands on the wheel of history, and this is what you'll get if you dare to question us. No, the cross isn't a sign of success. It is the menacing emblem of defeat. You see, the church calls this day good only with holy hindsight and an unsettling irony, an unsettling but intentional irony. Because on this day, nothing looks good, nothing feels victorious, nothing neatly resolves. But the church, in her wisdom, invites us to sit in the tension of the anguish, the sadness, the apparent downfall of that one immeasurably great man, however difficult it might be. To not rush past this part, to not just jump to the Easter joy just yet. Do not evade the deafening silence, she bids us. Pause here in the solemn stillness. Look, linger, listen. Let the sacred scandal stand. Because, you see, the cross exposes something in us. It reveals how addicted we are to visible success, how readily we equate goodness with triumph, how instinctively we assume that if God is at work, it should be imposing and obvious. But here is God. Not impressive, not domineering, not even glorious. Here is God absorbing violence rather than wielding it. Here is God forgiving, not annihilating his enemies. Here is God outright failing according to the measures of this world. The Apostle Paul would later call this cross foolishness, a stumbling block, a scandal. A crucified Messiah makes no sense. And yet, Good Friday invites us to reconsider what failure actually is. Maybe failure is clinging to power at the expense of truth and mercy. Maybe failure is assuming God's work must look spectacular to be real. Maybe failure isn't losing, but abandoning love. Some of you know what it is like to feel like a failure on this Friday. You believed in something and it collapsed. You invested in a relationship and it ended. You poured yourself into a task and it went unnoticed. You prayed and nothing seemed to change. By the world's standards, it is defeat indeed. But in the silence of this service, the cross whispers a different possibility. That what looks like loss may be the place where God is most deeply at work. What feels like humiliation may be the soil of resurrection. What seems like the end may be the beginning of a story we cannot fathom. On this day, we do not pretend. Jesus dies. Hope falters. Friends scatter. The sky darkens at midday. God does not even spare himself the full weight of our fear, our hatred, our violence, our sin. Yet precisely here, in this darkness, this despair, God plants the seed of rebirth. The disciples couldn't see it in the moment. Sometimes, neither can we. But Easter does not ask us to avoid or evade the shadow of the cross. It reveals what was hidden within it all along. The cross, you see, is not an inconvenient obstacle to God's purposes. It is the strange and terrible vehicle by which those purposes are fulfilled. It is only when we are ready to admit this to ourselves, our fallibility, our forsakenness, our futility, that we can receive the hope God has for us in the hardship. Only when we face our failures that we can truly experience faith. Only when our dreams and designs, our efforts and endeavors falter, then and only then are we ready to relinquish every instinct to control or coerce, achieve and attain, and instead to find God in the confounding mystery of the cross. This evening, we venerate this vehicle of our redemption, awful as it is. We let it unsettle us. We let it strip away our illusions of control. We let it redefine the salvation we seek on God's terms, not our own. Because before there is success, there must be surrender. Before triumph, true trust. And before there is Easter morning, there is this strange, dark, foolish, scandalous, sacred Friday, where Jesus seemed a failure and saves the world.